right, now we're ready to begin. Okay, welcome to our evening lecture series. I'm John Stewart, Chair of Architecture, and it gives me a great deal of pleasure to introduce our lecturer tonight. We have Roberto Rovira, who's the chair of the Landscape Architecture Department. And I was trying to think back to when I first met Roberto, and I think we met over a map. He was a new faculty member, and he just finished a map of Puerto Rico, and or maybe he hadn't just finished it, but he wanted to show it to me. And you know, it was a very like handsome map. It was I think it was about this big, and it had like all these details on it. It was done in it was in color. It was done by hand. It was really an amazing thing. And you kind of looked at it, and you saw the major cities. You saw Mayagüez. You saw Ponce. You saw Cayuga. You saw all these other. But then, if you started looking closer, you saw that what you originally thought was a real map of Puerto Rico had imaginary places in it. Had these little moments where you're like, what is this? Like, who said this? And these strange names, and they had strange places, and it had this other world kind of opened up if you looked at this map really closely. And I always think back to that because it was kind of a window into Professor Rovira's professional and his professional contributions here, because he's also extremely professional. But when you really look at what he's done in his life and the way in which he started, for example, at Cornell, graduating in 1990 with a degree in mechanical engineering, like you just wouldn't know that, right? You have to look at the map really closely to find that. Then was also a naval officer, and if you ever have time, you should ask him about some of his voyages on the tall ships as they traveled around the the continents, the South American continent, and was stationed in Japan. I mean, things you really just don't know unless you kind of look very carefully, and he tells you. And then he went to RISD, graduated from RISD in 1998, where he founded this crazy group, which you would never imagine a man in a black suit with a white shirt, founding an organization called the Guerrilla Gardeners, where they go and throw like wildflower seeds on things, and people suddenly are surprised by the sprouts that come up. And I'm sure they did other more subversive things than that. But and then actually having worked with and taught with Professor Rovira as an architecture professor, we had a studio last semester. And I just want to say that you then get even another layer of his commitment to creating public spaces, to thinking about how place and time are continuous, and that they flow in and out of each other. And I hope one of the things that we're going to see tonight in his work is the way in which time and space and the depiction of those times and spaces, not only on maps, but in all of his work, kind of comes through. So we're incredibly fortunate to have Professor Rovira here with us. I hope all of you students, architecture, interior architecture, landscape architecture students, get a chance to work with him. He's really one of the gems of this institution.
I'm going to gamble and try and put this on my lapel again. Hang on. Okay. Can you hear me okay? Yeah. Yes. Great. Well, thank you, John. Thank you for that great introduction. Really appreciate that. And it's really an honor to be here among colleagues and students and alumni and friends and hopefully future colleagues too. And I titled this talk, Inexactness and Incompleteness, Explorations in Landscape Architecture. And Professor Chandler was kind enough to tell me that he would never hire me as an accountant. So, inexactness. Perhaps not an accountant, but hopefully tonight I'll be able to share with you some of the things that interest me, that have been a lifelong passion, and sort of this evolution of ideas, really, which is